Thank you everyone for joining our SheTek, The Outlet, episode 20, Lunch and Learn with Extraordinary SheTek Women. My name is Elaine Tanimura. I am the SheTek Program Director, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. Just a few housekeeping things before we get started. You're on mute and your cameras are turned off. We are recording this session and we will let you know when the recording will be ready for you to review. If you have any questions today, we're encouraging you to put them in the Q&A box and we will answer them for you. So today's outlet is entitled Step into Tech as an IT Recruiter. And it's going to be moderated panel by Chaya Pamula. Chaya is the SheTek founder and president. She's also the PamTen co-founder, president, and CEO. PamTen is an IT staffing and solutions company located in Princeton, New Jersey. So Chaya, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Lynn. Welcome, everyone. So nice to have you all for this webinar. As you all know, SheTek's mission is to increase the number of women represented in the tech industry, and doesn't mean that you need to be a coder to become a technical recruiter. We know that there is a scarcity of this particular skill in the industry, and also it requires very special skills to be a successful technical recruiter. So we have experts on the panel today, and I would like to go around and ask them to introduce themselves briefly. Sheri, would you like to go first?
Sure. My name is Sheri Horwitz, and I am the founder of a IT consulting firm called NMA Solutions, and I was formerly Senior Vice President of IT at Synchronous Technologies. I am also a proud advisory board member of SheTek.
Thank you, Sheri. Roly?
Hi, my name is Roly Ramirez. I'm Director of Staffing at PamTen. I have 30 plus years experience in IT staffing, all the way from recruiting through recruitment management and in the position that I am now. And I've done so in both the IT staffing and consulting industry as well as on the corporate side.
Excellent, thanks. Prasad, do you want to go next?
Yeah. My name is Prasad Tenjerla, and I'm the co-founder and chief operations officer in PamTen. I have about 20 years of IT experience. I worked as a developer, consultant, and later on I jumped into this field of IT acquisition or talent acquisition, what we call. And this is a very fascinating field where I would encourage many of them to join. And I've got close to, I think, over 10 years experience in this field of talent acquisition. And thanks for having me on the board.
Thank you, Prasad. Sugandha, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Sugandha Parihar, and I'm currently working as a senior IT recruiter with JSR Staffing firm. I have close to 13 years of experience in recruiting, which I started initially as a normal HR recruiter, but switched on to IT recruiting. So past 10 years, I have been doing hardcore IT recruiting.
Thank you, Sugandha. Thank you, everyone. Let us jump into the conversation. I was actually looking at some statistics prior to this webinar, and interestingly enough, there are over 59% of women in the recruiting field, whereas only 40% are men. And then if you really look at the technical recruiting field, there are about 48% of women in the as technical recruiters, and about 51% of men in the field. So there is a lot of opportunity out there. And as we all know, talent is important for any, good talent is important for any organization to succeed. And we know that many corporate organizations are struggling today to find the right talent. And I see the recruiter role as more like a gate man role, right? So you are basically standing there and making sure you're filtering the right talent out there. So, and I know that you all bring different perspectives to this discussion, Sheri, especially you being on the other side of the table as a client hiring talent. And then Roly, you've progressed from your recruiting role to senior position in the industry, and you bring a lot of broad perspective to your views and input, and then Sugandha, how you have grown from being a tech recruiter and you've become a senior technical recruiter now in the industry, and non-IT to IT. That's a nice shift to know. And of course, Prasad, you've headed the organizations that have done this talent acquisition. So it's a wonderful combination of panelists today here for this webinar. So I do want to start my question with, first of all, a very fundamental question. What is IT staffing? Can someone jump onto that question? Maybe Sugandha, you can start off and somebody can chime in.
Sure. See, like when it comes to staffing, I would firstly like to differentiate. There are two terms which we usually get intermixed with. One is a technical acquisition, the other is staffing. So in technical acquisition, what we do is that it is a part of recruiting only, but it is a proactive recruiting. Whereas when it comes to staffing, staffing is more of a reactive kind of an approach, wherein we are trying to procure or trying to hire people as and when the requirement comes. But in talent acquisition, we try to build a pipeline so that the moment we have a demand for a particular resource, we can jump in and get the things done. So this is the difference between talent acquisition and staffing. And when we come to IT staffing in particular, that means we are mostly looking for people in the technical information technology sector, like people who are into development, the entire SDLC cycle which is involved. So they are more of a technical people rather than non-technical people. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, very much. Thank you. I liked what you said, filling the talent pipeline. That is very, very crucial. You can be reactive, especially when it comes to recruiting.
Yeah.
Roly, I see that you're ready to say something.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to kind of throw in, I think at a higher, more macro level, when you I know people ask me like, wow, what do you do, Roly? And I tell them, they're like, well, what's that? And, I mean, IT staffing in general is, it enables companies to fill skills gaps and to flexibly staff to meet their needs. And it's something where, just as an example, a company they'll lay out their project plans for the year, and they'll understand that they'll, lay out and plan out what technologies they're using, what platforms, and other things. But it's impossible for corporations to have somebody that has every skill that they're going to need at any given time. So that's when they turn to companies like PamTen and companies like JSR, where they say, hey, listen, we're looking to do this. We need 2 people with these specific skills. And that's kind of the skills gap, as Sugandha was talking about, where, the company has pretty much everything they need, but they need a couple of people to kind of fill some shortages in skills areas. And then another way is that it also provides them with the flexibility for staffing. So if business is going well and they're doing a lot of things, they're making a lot of investments in technology, it allows them to ramp up more quickly. However, it also allows them to ramp back down as either the work completes, or if maybe things change in the economy or in their specific industry that limits the funds they have available to be investing. So I know, like, some places it's called contingent workforce. That's just another one of the names for basically, the technical resources that we staff as part of IT staffing. And it's a growing industry. I mean, it's every year it continues to grow. I think I remember like 25, 30 years ago, there was like, oh, it's going to be like $5 billion. Well, it's about 35 billion now, and it's going to go up to like over 40 by 2027. So it's definitely a growing industry. And as we're talking, it's one that you can enter without being a technologist. Myself, zero technical background when I got involved in it.
Thank you, Roly. Great points. And I think in general, I think the differentiation between technical, non-technical recruiting, and also difference between staffing and recruiting, I think it's very clearly identified. Even some things have become more clear to me as well. So The follow-up question, actually, I'm bouncing back to Sugandha. What does a talent acquisition specialist, or you call recruiter, do in a day-to-day business?
See, like since I am an IT recruiter and I do it on daily basis, the first and foremost thing that we do is that like we have to study what the client requirement is. Okay, and as per the requirement, depending upon the technology or the skill set that they are looking for, we have to source the candidate first. And like there are lots of different avenues wherein we can source the candidates from. Like we have our own databases, we have portals like LinkedIn, we have Dice, and lots of other portals like Indeed and all. So from that, we have to source the candidates. By sourcing, we have to shortlist the resumes. We go through and make sure that the skill set what the candidate has and what the client is looking for, they are a good match. We don't really strive to go for 100% match, because these days the requirements are so typical that we need lots and lots of things. So it's good to have as much as you can, but yeah, a little bit of flexibility depends on what the client is looking for. Then after shortlisting resumes, we have to call the candidates over phone call and over a Zoom or a Teams meeting, and determine how good the person is, not just technically, but as well as personality wise, because it's not just somebody who is going to work there, but since you have to work in team, cultural fit is also very important. So we have to gauge through the discussion whether the person's attitude is right, what the client is looking for, whether the person will be able to work in a high pressure volume environment or not. So depending upon all those things, we shortlist the profile, talk to the candidate, and then we have to submit the resume to the client managers, interact with them, coordinate with the hiring managers, get the interview schedule done. And if there is an offer, then we communicate it to the candidate, work with the onboarding team. And as a recruiter, the person has to be in touch with the candidate from the very beginning till the person joins. And even after that, it's not that the candidate has joined the client and my work is done. No, I have to be in touch with the candidate, with the hiring manager also, so as to see that, okay, they have joined the organization, the manager hired the candidate, but are they still okay with each other or not? I have to follow up with the candidate regularly. It's not that every other day I'm calling, but at least every 15 days or at least a month, I have to check how the progress is going on. Similarly, it's good to have a feedback from the manager if the manager is satisfied with the person or not. Because sometimes people are good at the interview, but when it comes to actually performing in the workforce or in the environment, they are not able to do what they were expected to. So these things, it's not a common thing that happens, but once in a while it does happen. So it's always good to be in touch and keep following up with the candidates. So this is what a normal recruiter would do on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Sugandha. That's pretty detailed, and we'll touch upon a few other points as we go along the conversation. I think I'm going to, ask a question. Probably I'll ask Sheri to respond to this. What skills make a good tech recruiter? What attributes do you see are successful for a recruiter, especially Sheri, from your point of view as you're coordinating with the recruiters to hire the right talent in the organization?
From my perspective, a very good inside technical recruiter needs to understand what the group is looking for. Typically, a technical recruiter is recruiting for multiple areas in a company, not just one. So I think the first and foremost skill is listening skills, right? It sounds soft skills, right? What is the hiring manager really looking for from both the technology point of view, but also from a cultural fit, and persistence as well. Somebody who has a network and is able to kind of go in there and find the people. It's a pretty competitive environment these days. So having somebody who can establish a rapport with a candidate and work through that rapport throughout the interview process, because as we know, some interview processes can be longer, some can be shorter. So that candidate must sort of be kept interested. So in addition to sort of finding a fit of the technical skill, the technical level of expertise that we're looking for, because it has to be cultural fit, but also a technical level of expertise, being able to keep that, customer or that potential candidate engaged throughout the recruiting process would be the skills I would say we're looking for.
Awesome, thank you. And I think a lot of what Sugandha mentioned and everything that you said, Sheri, kind of aligns to the expectations from both sides. And now I'll actually go back to maybe Roly and Prasad, you can chime in. Roly, is there a career opportunity beyond recruiting? I know your story talks to it, but I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, my story talks to it, and I'm not unique because I know other people in the industry who followed a similar path. Mine has a little interesting tweak in that I got involved in the IT staffing industry. I went into sales. I was an account executive. So much like Manny, I came in and I didn't know the technology. I just understood how to sell, and so I worked through that for a couple of years and really kind of got a better sense of what I was doing, the environment I was working in, and then I got a unique opportunity where the branch I was working with, it kind of shifted its focus in the market, and it created an opportunity for a technical recruiting position, and it was something that caught my interest because it's similar to sales. You just have a different person that you're selling to, and instead of trying to get them to buy from you, you're offering them an opportunity that may be an improvement to their current situation. So that's how I got into it, and then my career really grew as a result of it because because of the resulting market change, we became an incredibly busy branch where we need to bring in recruiters from other parts of the company and the country to work. So it kind of put me into a kind of a project management, pseudo recruiting manager role, just out of necessity. And then as things continued to grow, my responsibilities grew, and I moved into as a recruiting manager. And then I just kind of continued to evolve. And as I worked for different companies, responsibilities grew. And then I'm director of staffing at PamTen. I have a friend who followed a more technical route, and he ended up, vice president of a region for an IT staffing company. But then there's also the other route, the non-recruiting route, because as a recruiter, and I think Sugandha can confirm, you're in the middle of it all. And so you're working with clients indirectly, you're working with candidates, you're working with salespeople and account managers. So you're kind of getting a sense of what each of these roles involve. So you can also move from recruiting into account management, where you're kind of interacting with the client, you're interacting with the recruiters, you're interacting with the salesperson, and then that can evolve into a sales role, where you're an account executive and you're out developing new business and making new client relationships. And then that, continues to grow. Just as with recruiting, you can move into sales management, and you can shift into more operational roles. So really, recruiting is a great way to get into the tech industry without technical background, and kind of create a career path and a future for yourself, depending on where opportunity takes you and kind of what you want to take advantage of.
Very true. Great story, Roly. I think, what you touched upon is basically, you may start as a recruiter, but there are certain leadership qualities that, you want to nurture as you grow in your career that will help you to start leading the teams and managing the teams, and then getting into account management. Ultimately, I mean, you're managing the entire function here. So it's a great opportunity without any technical background. That's what is important to understand. And I know, Prasad, you are very passionate about finding the right talent and then actually mentoring them and getting them settled in their job roles. I've seen you doing that for decades. Do you want to add something to it? I know there is a very important element there, which Sugandha touched upon. Once you hire a candidate and you place them with the client, you don't take it for granted it's going to be successful.
Correct.
There is an element of mentoring, element of making them feel comfortable on the job, and then also preparing them for the interviews and the job. And you've done that tremendously. So do you want to chime in and say something around that?
First of all, this was not something which I was looking at my career as a IT recruiter before, where I was a developer and then always, having my heads down and then doing the coding. And suddenly, when we started off the company, I think our company itself is a great example, Chaya, where we did not have any salespeople, but we built the company to more than about 300 people. Now, how did the magic happen? The availability and then the confidence and the passion with which we were approaching any of our clients. We cannot, earlier I used to think that I was not a sales guy, but now everybody looks at me like a sales guy just because I am wearing a tie today. So the way it works out is it's your presentation which will matter the most. And it has to be the same from inside and then outside. So the people around you, like whether it is your client or the candidate who is actually choosing the job, it is such a passionate thing for us to connect these two dots together to make that magic happen. And once that magic happens, it is a confidence with which you are reaching out to these clients and then the candidates. There are so many people in the industry who are looking for exciting opportunities. Knocking at their door is not easy, because earlier, there were people where they used to consider this to be the most toughest job, because nobody wants to talk to the recruiter. Nobody wants to talk to the sales guys. And whenever anybody is sending out an email, they say, you know what, we don't want to respond to those emails. But how do you create that aha moment where I would like to get connected with this guy and I want to talk to him about my opportunity? That's something which is very appealing. And thanks to Sugandha, when she's saying your job will never get over once you place a candidate. Make sure the candidate is happy. And that is another secret sauce what we have been having at Chaya, like in our company, where you nurture, you encourage them, and then you keep on empowering them, because the industry is not going to be the same forever. So if at all you're going to identify a job for them, doesn't mean that they can be there for the lifetime, because there are a lot of challenges. So you need to continue to grow, and the passion should always be there. And by we getting involved and then challenging them, I've got a lot of successful stories to speak about, where when we have hired in this is a very good example for the SheTek. She was a housewife and she was not having a job, and she got challenged by her husband, and then she chose a job where she was getting about $40 per hour. Today, she is getting about $175 per hour. We kept on challenging her. We said, you were the lowest among all the people. So that, there are a lot of passionate stories to speak about. And the, best part, what excites me to, make this as my career, when you start filling in the positions for the needful roles, whatever anybody's playing, they do remember us. And when you do a good job, they keep referring people, and we keep gaining more and more confidence. So basically, it is the availability, the confidence, and the passion with which you do the job. Nobody can steal away your job, and this can be the best career for you. And again, the best part, as you said, Roly, you don't need to learn any certifications, or you don't need to gain any technical expertise. It is a pleasing attitude which will matter the most. Thank you.
Thanks, Prasad. I think you touched upon passion multiple times, which I believe in. Everyone should be passionate about what they do. Otherwise, they don't put their heart and soul into what they do. It's important, right? And the other thing is, you cannot take recruiter job as very lightly, because as a recruiter, you're actually giving a opportunity for someone to settle in their life and earn bread and butter for their families, and realize their dreams. It's a big thing, and a lot of times it's taken very lightly. It is not, because you are actually creating a channel for someone to settle in their lives. So if we think from that perspective, and you have that passion to do so, I think you will be a very successful recruiter. I completely agree to that. So going to the next point, next question, I think it's Sugandha, you touched on it a little bit earlier about you not being a technical recruiter to start with. You're HR, worked in the HR space, and then you kind of moved into technical recruiting. So my question is, maybe Sugandha, you can start off, and Sheri, I would like to hear from you as well. Do you need, Sugandha, do you need to have that HR recruiting experience? Do you think it's a must to have prior to becoming a tech recruiter? And the other question is, do you think having technical background is helping you on the job? So it's actually a two-part question.
So I'll start with the first one, and I'll give a background of myself also. Like, I did start as a non-IT recruiter, but I do have a HR background. I did my MBA majoring in HR. But that being said, it did help me, and I started my career with a recruiting job only. So throughout my career, I have been into recruitment only. But that doesn't mean that in order to get into recruitments, you have to have a HR background. The team that I have recruited under me, lots of them were not having any HR background. They were just simple graduates with, non-HR or non-IT background. What I feel is important in becoming a recruiter is that first the person should have very good comm skills. When we say comm skills, it's just not the spoken communication skills, but trying to read the people, trying to understand the people, and trying to connect with them. We have to make the person comfortable and engage them in a way that they feel, okay, this person understands my requirement, what I'm looking for, and this person will be able to connect me to a job which I'm looking for. So we have to understand the candidate's need. So communication definitely, and interpersonal skill. Again, it's the part of being a recruiter. The person should be able to interact with people and should be able to understand what they are looking for. And when it comes to the IT aspect of being a tech recruiter, I have no IT background at all. As I said, like, I started my career as a non-IT recruiter only. And then since there was a need, I moved on to IT recruitments. So if I had a technical background, definitely that would have helped me, that would have given me an edge over others, but it's not a deal breaker. You can learn if you are willing to do it. So it's the attitude, it's the aptitude that you need to have. These days there are so many things available online. You can learn through the small courses that you have over LinkedIn, Udemy. So it's, as I said, like, it again all depends on your interest. If you want to become an IT recruiter, since in technology itself, everything is changing every other moment. So you have to keep yourself abreast. So the only thing to do is that keep studying, keep updating yourself, whether you are in IT background or not, you still have to do it. So the gist would be that if you have the background in HR or IT, that will definitely help. But again, if you have interest, then I don't think anything can stop you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sugandha. I think attitude and aptitude, I really like that comment. Roly, you were
I was
going
going to say,
something.
I thought those were some great points, because I guess on the one point, the communication aspect of it, it's really important, because communication runs throughout the entire process, and it's the communication with your internal team, it's the communication with the candidate, sometimes with the client, and then after they've been placed, that ongoing communication. And then just to reiterate the point about the having the IT background or having the HR background. The HR background, I ran, I was part of a corporate HR organization for a period of time. And it is helpful to understand certain aspects of employment law, just so you understand what questions you can ask, what questions you cannot ask, and things like that. And then things around work authorization and those types of things. But those are things that you learn as you join a company and as they kind of train you. And the technology, a lot of it through osmosis as you're working through things, and then you understand the difference between an operating system and a programming language and a platform, and how these things kind of interrelate. And then as Sugandha said, just keeping abreast of what's going on, and either courses or or webinars or things like that just kind of help you kind of continue to evolve as the industry evolves are really important.
Great points, Roly. I think you touched on very practical scenarios, and I want to see if Sheri has anything to add to that.
No, I think both Sugandha and Roly added, said it exactly right. I mean, you don't need to have an HR background. You don't need to have a technical background. It certainly helps, but it's not a requirement. I think the willingness to learn and listen is as important. I agree with Roly in terms of understanding employment law, though it is helpful when you're recruiting, but you could learn that as you progress in the position. I think the piece of this that we also have touched on is just creativity. I think you do need to be creative to be, and in sales, as Roly said, to be a recruiter. But creativity, and what I mean by that is you could be recruiting for position at, say, in a location. Well, at least it used to be that way before things were really hybrid, right? But that market may not support any, what you're looking for. Let's say you're looking for a specific skill and it's not in the market, and you have to be able to go back to the hiring manager and say, we need to pay more, we need to pay less, we need to go down a level because the people at the level that you're looking for are looking for a higher salary. So there's other things that you need to be able to do. So I guess you could just say being able to analyze a problem and look to solve it, because the market doesn't always provide you with what you're looking for, even though you're hoping that it does. And I was lucky to work with a great recruiter who's actually on this call who had those skills. So lucky for me.
Yeah, great. I think, for the listeners, I just want to highlight one aspect. We are repeatedly hearing that there is no need to have the technical knowledge. You gain some high-level technical knowledge just to help you, be successful on your job. But as you're hearing through this webinar, you should understand that this is a kind of role that is, if you have the passion to find the right talent, this is a role that you should be even considering, because you don't really need to understand coding. So that point is coming out, and it's not just like any other job, right? This particular job also should have some challenges, right? So especially you're dealing with people. I always say where there are people, there are problems. And how do you? I know passion is one thing. Prasad, you talked about it, connecting the dots and ensuring that people are happy. Sugandha, you talked about, all of you really talked about how important it is to continuously engage with the candidates. So my question is, what's the hardest part of working with the candidates? And what's the best part working with the candidates? This question is open for any one of you to chime in and answer. No one wants to answer this.
No, but I can take it, Chaya. Any person, whenever you're going to get a profile or a requirement or about a client need, one of the challenging part will be to see whether if you can really identify the resource and then get them to that right place. And in the best interest of time, I can put it in the simplest fashion that confidence in you is something which can make you, get through any situations. I think Roly also understands that, a lot of times these recruiters, when they get into a situation, they say, oh, you know what, let Prasad handle it. So that will be the worst part. But the best part is when you can make it resolve and then look at, this, you could have done it too. So in similar terms, whenever it comes to a situation about the toughest part with the candidate is when that candidate doesn't have the visibility about what he's getting. That is when they get confused and they get to take you around the bush and all. But the best part is you have to be convinced to convey any message to these candidates. As long as you get that information out there upfront, you have to give the confidence to that candidate that, hey, you know what, this is what you're getting. There will never be a setback for us. So the hardest part is to get to know the candidate And then best part is to convey the message to the candidate, provided you are convinced that this is the right person for you. I'm just saying it in a
No, I
simplest.
think it's a great point. I mean, it's important that you have the transparency, right, to develop that trust with the candidate.
I think it will happen to us in every situation. Not that we have done it for the first time, so now going forward everybody can understand me. No, for every situation, as you said, Chaya, when you're dealing with people, you're dealing with problems. But I'll tell you what, as long as you identify it as a problem, solutions are right there. And this is one of the most exciting part of people management. I can also take it in the best example scenario where a fresher was hired as a recruiter, and the person was spending most of the time on the social media for the first 3 months. And then the management gets to know, saying that, why is he spending so much time over there? Then the person comes in by surprise and surpasses everybody and then closes about 100 deals that year. It was a wow moment. Now, how did this magic happen? He was available for everybody. He was socially visible and he was ready to connect. So, that magic happens eventually. It is not that whether if I'm right for the job or wrong for the job. It is your availability, it's your confidence, and it's a message how you're presenting. And one of the points which Sugandha was mentioning was about your communication skills. I would be adding it as an adjective as you should know how to present yourself. So, presentation, because communication, everybody can get to do it, but how you're presenting yourself, that will be the key factor.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I know I'm just checking the time here. We do have a few more minutes, and I can actually go through a couple more questions. And I think we touched upon what's the hardest part, working with a candidate, and what's the best part. And most of you also touched on the point around negotiation, right? It's important that you understand and negotiate, and it has to be a win-win situation to be successful. And I'm going to ask Sheri a question about how do you think the recruiters, or how did the recruiters help you to find the right talent? I'm asking from a client perspective, what do you see is something that's successful for a recruiter to find the right talent for you as a client?
I think it goes back to a lot of what we've been saying, is the ability to really hone in on what you're looking for. And then the ability for that recruiter to have a network of people to seek out, to find that match. And that takes some time. In some cases, depending on the technology that you're recruiting for and how competitive that environment is. So it's twofold, really understanding what we're looking for as a hiring manager, what level of knowledge that we're hoping to get in the organization. Will that person be a cultural fit as well? And then being able to find the talent. And that requires, constant work, as others have said here on the call, to have a network of people to go to and to be able to uncover and find people and sell them on interviewing and hopefully taking an offer for the company for which you're recruiting them. So a lot of skills there that are really required to be a successful recruiter.
Yeah, well said. In fact, when I was hiring people, I was working with recruiters, I always liked the ones that came back to me and verified my requirements. They would ask the right questions and try to get more information and, build that kind of relationship, right? So you always turn to those people that build good relationships with you.
Absolutely. And also to understand the requirement technically.
Yeah.
So there is some technical acumen that is developed over time. So if I'm looking for a mid-level person, a senior level person, the recruiter needs to be able to look at a resume and present those candidates properly. If I'm looking for a mid-level person or a senior level person, I don't want a junior level person presented. It's a waste of the hiring manager's time to even read the resume, because as you know, managers are busy. So that's the other skill that's very important, is even if you don't have a technical background, you need to have some sense of what level technology, you're looking for, right? At some point you have to gain it in order to be able to present the correct candidates. And sometimes that means being able to read between the lines in a resume, because a resume is just a resume, but it doesn't always reflect what the person is. So I think the one thing that maybe we haven't talked about yet on the call is to be a detective and to be able to sort of get in between the lines there of the resume and say, is this person really qualified for this job? Or, is it, they just take one class in this particular skill set and they've said that they have the skill.
A very good point. Being a detective, yes. I mean, there's so many fake resumes floating out there, and I do agree.
And it's also, people aren't professional resume writers, so sometimes they'll have a skill and they won't put it on the resume. But if you have an understanding of what it is you're looking for, you may see something that they did on their resume that implies, well, wait a minute, if you did this, or if you worked with this technology, then you had to have worked with that technology, because you can't work with one without the other. So that's kind of where it's like reading between the lines. And but it really comes down to really understanding what the client is looking for. I was having a conversation with a recruiter the other day, and it was really, you can work hard and that's fine, but you got to work smart. And if you take the time on the front end to really understand what the client is looking for, then you save yourself a lot of drudgery in going through and finding candidates that aren't fits. Where if you really understand, then you can kind of hone in on your search and be much more efficient in your search. I'm sure Sugandha can relate to that.
Sugandha, you have anything to say, add to that? Thanks, Roly.
Yeah, definitely. See, resumes these days are like, sometimes candidates, they would put a lot of stuff in the summary, but when it comes to the actual projects, the particular skill will be nowhere to be seen. And when you talk to them, they'll say that I have put it in the summary. Why do I need to put it in the clients or in the project? They don't understand that the hiring manager is going to look how relevant it is, what exactly they did with a particular tool or a technology. So rather than mentioning everything in a summary, I understand summary gives an idea, but the project details give you an elaborate understanding of what the person exactly did with that. So it's not that you can put it in one place and omit it entirely in the other. It won't be relatable. So even if you omit it in summary, that is okay. But you have to have it in the project details, wherein it tells, okay, you exactly did this and this with that particular tool or technology. So yeah, resumes plays a very, very great part in a recruiter's job. You really have to understand what the candidate is trying to say. When you talk to them, you have to sometimes make the candidate understand that you wrote this in the resume, but what you are telling me, it doesn't really means that. So it's like, okay, you are telling them what they have done or what they have not done.
Yeah, very true. I think resume, it's important, as you said, the resume speaks to your experience, and that's the first level of screening. But also after the screening is done, then you're talking to the candidate, you realize that some of the things that they have said or put in the resume are really not truly their experience. So there's a technique that you, as a recruiter, you need to know. But also, apart from that, there are so many tools and technologies, platforms out there to source candidates. I think I want to come back to that basic fundamental question of where do you find the candidates? You have a job requirement or you need certain talent. Where do you find them? And how do you find them? It's talking about job boards. Everybody's dipping into the same pocket, right? So how do you, as a recruiter, have that talent or technique to find the right person? And I know you can refer to some of the portals and job boards that you utilize. I think the question is, where do you find the right talent?
Is the question open to anybody, or
of course,
can I take this? Okay.
Sure, please.
Any requirement which is going to be put in by the client, that particular client is putting in because they were not successful. And if at all it is coming out to us, that's an opportunity according to me. And the opportunity can definitely be taken as an advantage from our side, not by just referring to these job boards, because job boards, there are a lot of unemployed who can be capable or may be capable, and some people probably they might not have updated the profiles, because once they get the job, they just get to leave it there. Now to identify the right talent, most of the social media tools or the email marketing, whatever you do, the real talented person will not be interested in getting carried away with those information in the social media. It is a personal connection which will bring into this business closure. So as a talented recruiter, we should have that skill of, while Roly and Sugandha were talking about resumes and all, you need to identify the first place where you can begin to talking to these candidates. The actual candidate who will be available may not be available in the market out there, but you should be able to find them. So that is a real talent, what according to me, that no position can be kept open, because there will be some resource who will be capable of at least 80% match. Now we need to convince them to, identify that. So that's how we have been reaching out, where no position is difficult and no position is easy to close, because we are dealing with people end of the day, and we reaching out to the people is a key factor. So that's my answer in short.
Yeah, thank you. You said it right. It's important that you find the right person for the right talent, of course, at the right time. Otherwise, you lose the opportunity. But I also wanted to just quickly touch upon the sources where, as a recruiter, maybe Sugandha you can answer. As a recruiter, where do you go to find the right talent? What are the sources?
See, as Prasad mentioned, like there are like online portals, there is social media. But what I feel is the most important one and most reliable one is getting the candidates through your references. We had a client for whom the position was a little typical. We were looking for an old technology, and the candidates that we were able to find through all the online networks and all, they were not willing to go for it. But there were 3 4 positions, and ultimately we were able to close all of them, and they all got closed through our personal references that we got through our current or past employees. So references play, as per me, a very, very important part. And we can really rely on those people because they are being referred by employees with whom we have been working. We do have a rapport. So we don't really have to explain or, try to build the confidence in the person who is being referred to us, because the person already has confidence in us and he has a background of what the client is looking for. So that takes the process a step ahead and helps us, rather than just going to a stranger or entirely a new person explaining them each and everything.
Yeah, I think
Very
Thank
well
you.
said.
that's a
Very
great
well
point
said.
about reaching out to past employees. I think that's a resource that kind of gets lost.
Yeah.
Because people just don't think about it. People just think about who's currently here.
No, great points. Yeah, great points.
Yeah,
I'm just looking at the time. So one last question I'm going to go like a flash round. So the question is, what's the one important quality a recruiter should have? I know there are a lot, and each one of you can just throw one out there that comes to your mind. Most important quality a recruiter should have.
As per me, it would be the interpersonal interaction. The person should be able to interact well, should be able to make the candidate comfortable, and should be able to connect well with them. Because if the candidate is not comfortable with you just in the very beginning, I don't think he will have the confidence that this person is going to help me in finding a right place wherein I am going to work. As you said, like the recruiter is trying to help a candidate find a job wherein he could look at himself for a very, very long time. So if the candidate is confident in you and is able to connect with you, then only he will be interested in going ahead with you. Everybody is calling him for a job, but he's not going to apply for each and every job. The person he's able to get well connected with, I think he'll be able to go with that only.
Thanks, Sugandha. Any other thoughts? Just a quick answer.
Yeah, I think drive or persistence. I think for someone to be successful as a recruiter, they need to have that internal motor running, that they want to be successful, that they want to meet that challenge of finding the right person and making the placement.
Great. Interpersonal skills and the drive.
And then in addition to that, I could add it as analytical, and not just because this is a SheTek webinar. I would like to say all women have this analytical skills by default. If you ask me, this can be the best profession for them, because they are so analytical, because when it comes to taking care of their children or about the next generation or about the parents, whoever, they are very analytical. Those skills will help them to steer this role in a very amicable manner, I should say, where they make the other person comfortable. So that passion with which they can drive this analytical skills, the best profession for women.
Okay. Interpersonal drive, analytical skills. What do we have, Sheri?
Just to tie it in, I would say networking capabilities, persistence, and then I think what Prasad is touching on is problem-solving capabilities as well.
Right. Yeah, thank you. And I think that comes to my one thing that comes to my mind is curiosity. I think it's important for them to have that curiosity to understand the need and ask the right questions. And the same for the candidate as well. They should be able to understand what are the needs of the candidate as well as the client. So that curiosity element is also important. I think it's a great discussion. I really appreciate all of you, your time. And I want to see at this time, if you have any questions from the listeners.
Yeah, I think we had one or two questions. Let's see. If you don't have a tech background, how do you know if the candidate you are working with is a fit to the requirements?
Okay, I guess I'll take that one. I think it's important because you just don't walk in blind, right? You learn as you go to get a sense, but really what you're doing is pre-qualifying. So you're taking a look at the skills, you're taking a look at what's noted in the resume. Is it in the body of the resume? So when you get a job requirement, it really breaks it down to certain skills. So you just need to look at those, see if they're in the body of the resume where they've done the work, and then you have a conversation just to get a sense, and then that you're not the last stop. Then you pass that along. So really what the recruiter does is a pre-qualification, and then it gets passed along for further technical qualification.
That's a good answer, Roly. I think what you're referring to is actually we call as sourcing. You can start off sourcing, looking at the candidates, understanding and doing first level of filtering, and then you can get into more, through your experience, get into more in-depth recruiting role.
Good. And there's another question. As a new recruiter, how do you educate yourself on the new technologies that are out there in the market?
Anyone can answer this?
I'm waiting for Sugandha to respond to this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I was about to do that only. So see, as a new recruiter, and if you do not have a technical background, I would suggest going for some online courses, as I suggested initially also, like in Udemy and LinkedIn. You have very, very basic courses which give you an idea about the IT technologies. To start with, you don't really need to go in depth into each and everything, as long as you have the basic understanding. You understand what a software is, you understand what a database is, what are the languages, or what is an operating system. So this is how I also started. We did not had all these courses at that time. Luckily, like everybody has those instruments right now. But what I did was that I Googled everything and I tried to compare the requirements with the resumes. I would look with the title. Okay, this is a title. Suppose if I'm looking for a mainframe developer, I would Google what does a mainframe developer do. Lots of terms and technologies would come. So it ultimately depends how in depth you are willing to study. And as Chaya also said, curiosity. How curious you are. You might not have a technical background, but if you are willing to put in the effort, if you are willing to learn it, I don't think it really matters. So on online, there are so many instruments that you can use and learn about the technologies that you want to succeed or you need to succeed as an IT recruiter.
It's funny
Well
that you
said.
mentioned Google because with this new salesperson that I alluded to earlier, one of the things I did for him was I gave him job titles of all the job titles like on our rate card. And I said, now go to Google and type in, what does a project manager do? What does a solutions architect do? What does a front end developer do? I said, because it is an incredible tool. If you've got a question, type it in.
Awesome. And you touched on all great points. I think I also want to say that this webinar is a prelude to our technical recruiter training bootcamp, and a lot of these things which you don't really find this information outside. You have to Google every little thing. But I think SheTek's training programs are more focused on making your job ready, and when it comes to it, it's more a practical training. So which I know Elaine will be talking about it, but so these are all great questions, and the training should answer most of those questions.
Thank
Do we
you.
have more questions, Elaine?
Well, those are the questions that we had in the box.
Okay, we are right on time, and thanks again to all our panelists today. Wonderful discussion. I know we can speak for hours more, but I think we touched on all the right points. Thank you so much.
Very good.
Over to you, Elaine.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Chaya, Sheri, Roly, Prasad, and Sugandha, Joanne in the back end with all the statistics. I'm just going to share my screen again and just some quick information about SheTek. So for those of you who may not be new with SheTek is all about increasing the number of women in technology jobs. We do that through engaging, empowering, and employing. Right now, you can check out our SheTek website at shetek.net. We actually have a position that we're recruiting for a sales coordinator in our Princeton, New Jersey office. So if you're interested in that, please go to our website. We also list other jobs that we have available in the tech field. We are in the process of rolling out our SheTek Annual Women's Tech Conference. It's going to be a hybrid event starting on Wednesday, November 2nd from 5:30 to 8 p.m. at the Hopewell Valley Vineyard. You'll have an opportunity to network with other SheTekers, enjoy great food, wine, and entertainment. And then the second day of the conference will be virtual. That's Thursday, November 3rd from 8:30 to 1:30 p.m. via Zoom. And we are going to have a variety of tech topics as well as just ways to improve your soft skills and more. So registration will be opening soon. So keep checking your email for that information as well as our website. And we also have a tech mentorship program. This is a great way for mentees to be matched with professional IT women who can help you navigate your tech career. So it's a little different than a general mentorship program. It's really focused on developing your tech skills. And then as Chaya just mentioned, we have our IT Tech Recruiter Bootcamp. So anyone on the call today that's interested in this as a career and wants to learn more, this will be a 4-week virtual bootcamp that will be rolling out in the fall. So for all of this information, please check your email or check our website for more information. So again, on behalf of Chaya, Prasad, the others, thank you so much for joining our webinar. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a great holiday weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you very much.